Engines full power, and liftoff.
The Falcon 9 rocket is an integral part of today's space ecosystem. It launches national security missions, rideshare flights, science and Earth observation missions,
Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Pace.
and perhaps most importantly, private and professional astronauts.
Engines full power, and liftoff. Go Falcon, go Dragon.
SpaceX launched the Falcon 9 rocket a total of 354 times starting back in 2010. It's flown more than 340 times without a catastrophic issue since 2016. But that unparalleled streak of success came to an end on July 11, 2024,
And liftoff.
the launch of a batch of Starlink satellites from Vandenberg Space Force Base.
I think it's remarkable that it didn't happen sooner. If you're going to have a failure, this is a relatively benign failure in the sense that it's late in the mission. And if these satellites are indeed lost, well, you've got 6,000 more where those came from.
Understandably, there's a lot of questions about what happened both during the flight and what happens next. So let's take those one at a time to really get a full picture of this anomaly.
For context, the Starlink 9-3 mission was SpaceX's 70th Falcon mission in 2024, 69 launches with the Falcon 9, and 1 with the Falcon Heavy. It was also the 49th time this year that the company launched a batch of its own Starlink internet satellites. The flight appeared normal through the point of fairing separation, exposing the 20 Starlinks to the vacuum of space. As the Falcon 9 second stage continued to raise its perigee, or the lowest point in the orbit, eagle-eyed viewers noted that some frost was drifting towards the nozzle of the Merlin Vacuum engine, which was glowing amid its first burn. Then, seconds later, the mylar wrapping surrounding the upper portion of the engine suddenly expanded. Excessive amounts of frost continued forming around the engine over the next few minutes. Johnathan McDowell is an astrophysicist and someone who keeps a thorough record of the Starlink constellation among other orbital bodies. He says, as he watched this, he wasn't confident at first there was, in fact, a problem.
We've seen plenty of things before that looked strange and later got explained as, oh yeah, no, that's normal because, frost buildup is not necessarily a sign of a problem, although that was for sure a lot of it. And so I was ready to hear SpaceX say, yeah, we had a successful deployment. What you saw on the video is explained by, some boring thing. But it definitely got my attention.
In a statement on July 12th, SpaceX explained that there was a liquid oxygen leak on the Falcon 9's upper stage. As a result, it was unable to complete the second planned burn. Under normal circumstances, about an hour after liftoff, the tension rods that hold the Starlink satellites to the Falcon 9's upper stage would hinge and allow the satellites to release and begin their journey to their operational orbit. McDowell explains why.
Over the years, right, the Starlinks have had a couple of different launch profiles. They were at one point using a single burn profile and releasing Starlinks only 15 minutes after launch, right? And to a slightly lower deployment orbit. And as we got more into Solar Max, and especially after that embarrassing incident with the geomagnetic storm, where a whole bunch of Starlinks re-entered prematurely, they've moved to consistently using the two-burn approach, where you go into a parking orbit that's maybe 130, 140 kilometers by 300 kilometers or so, and you coast to the apogee, and then at the apogee, over the equator, you do just this little spritz of the Merlin Vac that increases the speed a smidge and raises the perigee, the opposite end of the orbit, to circularize it, essentially.
During the Starlink 9-3 mission, however, SpaceX says because that second engine burn wasn't able to happen, it was unable to circularize the orbit of the upper stage. And that left the Starlink satellites in a precarious position, which SpaceX described as, quote, an enormously high-drag environment only 135 kilometers above the Earth. It clarified that with each orbit around the planet, the satellites lowered by 5 kilometers. At this level of drag, our maximum available thrust is unlikely to be enough to successfully raise the satellites, SpaceX wrote in a statement. As such, the satellites will re-enter the Earth's atmosphere and fully demise. They do not pose a threat to other satellites in orbit or to public safety. McDowell describes it in terms of control authority, using a good analogy.
At those low altitudes, there's this magic word called control authority, which is are your muscles strong enough to turn the steering wheel? Right? And so, and I don't know if you've ever tried driving a really crappy old car that doesn't have a lot of control authority on its steering wheel. And you get
Fortunately
blown
not.
off the road. I'm old enough. I remember I had this old Ford Fiesta that was really, really bad in that respect. And so the equivalent in a satellite is that the torques, the forces acting to tumble the spacecraft are larger at low altitudes because of you're in the wind, you're in the upper atmosphere. And if your thrusters don't have enough thrust to counteract those torques, right? They can handle the torques at 300 kilometers, but they can't handle the torques at 130, 150 kilometers. And so that's a problem because then the winds are going to blow you in some different direction. And if you're trying to fire your rocket engine, it's really important to fire it in the right direction. Right? And so if you end up firing in the wrong direction, you don't change the orbit the way you wanted it to change. So it's not just, do I have enough fuel? It's, can I steer the spacecraft so that I'm using that fuel to push it in the right direction? And that's what makes being very low fatal. They just don't have the muscle power to keep the steering wheel pointed in the direction they need to keep it pointed.
Meanwhile, the first stage on the mission, tail number B-1063 in the SpaceX fleet, was unaffected by the anomaly and safely landed on the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You in the Pacific Ocean a little more than 8 minutes after liftoff. This marked the 329th booster landing for SpaceX to date.
All that said, SpaceX's Falcon 9 will remain grounded for some period of time, and during that time, SpaceX will lead a mishap investigation to get to the root cause of what went wrong, and that'll be done in coordination with the Federal Aviation Administration. And the reason for that is that the FAA helps to oversee commercial spaceflight activities here in the United States.
On Friday, July 12th, the FAA said it was requiring an investigation into the failed flight. As part of its statement, the agency wrote, "An investigation is designed to further enhance public safety, determine the root cause of the event, and identify corrective actions to avoid it from happening again. The FAA will be involved in every step of the investigation process and must approve SpaceX's final report, including any corrective actions. A return to flight is based on the FAA determining that any system, process, or procedure related to the mishap does not affect public safety. In addition, SpaceX may need to request and receive approval from the FAA to modify its license that incorporates any corrective actions and meet all other licensing requirements."
If it turns out that this little failure was just one person did something wrong one time and, put the widget in backwards or something, and there's a reason why it wasn't caught in the quality inspections, or they just need to increase the quality inspections a bit, sure. But if it turns out that this is the tip of an iceberg of, because of schedule pressure, they have a lax quality control environment or a lax assembly environment, that a lot of things are just scraping by, and this was the one that finally bit them, right? Then that's a lot worse, and that's a much bigger standout. And so SpaceX's job is to prove that it wasn't that latter case, to prove that it was really an isolated incident and not a symptom of trying to do too much in too short a time.
To be clear, McDowell thinks it's likely an isolated incident. But because the Falcon 9 has such a broad customer base, many are closely watching the potential impacts to the rest of its launch manifest. One of those eyeing the investigation is businessman Jared Isaacman. He's the commander of the upcoming commercial astronaut mission dubbed Polaris Dawn. The mission was targeting a launch from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida no earlier than July 31st. In a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, Isaacman said his support for SpaceX is based on the track record of the Falcon 9. "I can say from personal experience, they are very transparent when issues arise," Isaacman wrote on X. "I have no doubt they will arrive at a cause quickly and ensure the most cost-effective and reliable launch vehicle keeps delivering payloads to orbit. As for Polaris Dawn, we will fly whenever SpaceX is ready and with complete confidence in the rocket, spaceship, and operations." In response, SpaceX founder Elon Musk wrote, "Thanks, Jared. We will investigate the issue and look for any other potential near misses. A major advantage of this super high flight rate is that we can identify and resolve problems that may only occur once every 1,000 flights. This is impossible on a low flight rate vehicle, Musk wrote. Another key mission for SpaceX is the upcoming launch of NASA's Crew-9 mission. That will see 3 NASA astronauts and a Russian cosmonaut fly to the International Space Station on board a Crew-Dragon spacecraft for a 6-month stay. Prior to the July 11 issue, the Crew-9 launch was targeting liftoff from Kennedy around mid to late August. However, NASA and Roscosmos may want to see some number of successful missions from the Falcon 9 before they're comfortable moving forward with the Crew-9 flight once again. Simultaneously, SpaceX is also scheduled to launch a cargo resupply mission to the ISS by supporting the latest Cygnus spacecraft, which is built by Northrop Grumman. That mission also had an August launch date, but that too could face some level of uncertainty when it comes to timing. In a statement on July 12th, NASA said in part, quote, SpaceX has been forthcoming with information and is including NASA in the company's ongoing Anomaly investigation to understand the issue and path forward. NASA will provide updates on agency missions, including potential schedule impacts, if any, as more information becomes available. The Falcon 9 issue also highlights why NASA wants a dissimilar redundancy to transport its astronauts to and from the space station. The crew flight test of the Boeing Starliner spacecraft remains ongoing. NASA and Boeing are working to better understand issues that came up during flight, with some thrusters as well as a few helium leaks. Starliner is years behind schedule, and the first operational flight of Starliner isn't expected until 2025. That said, its ticket to ride, United Launch Alliance's Atlas V rocket, has launched 100 times consecutively without an in-flight anomaly and is looking to launch again later in July.
It once again justifies that it's the right decision to be pushing forward with Starliner, despite its niggling problems. And, there's some discussion on the web comparing the two incidents, right? I think the worries with Starliner are, small compared to a real outright failure on this Falcon 9, right?
Given SpaceX's hardware-rich business model, McDowell says the Falcon 9 will likely return to flying Starlink missions again soon, and other customer missions not too long after that. The last time SpaceX had an in-flight anomaly was back in June 2015, when a helium issue caused a rupture in the Falcon 9's oxygen tank, leading to an explosion. The Falcon 9 didn't fly for 6 months after that. The most recent problem was another helium issue that led to an on-the-ground explosion and lead up to a static fire test in 2016. SpaceX had to stand down for 4 months after that. McDowell said it will likely be far less time this go-around.
Because you have so much flight heritage now, you have confidence in the design. So it's a one-off thing, kind of. And if you can identify it, you'll have confidence that you fixed it and it's not something lurking, that could bite you again. And so I think we're looking at 1 to 2 months.
In a statement, SpaceX said, with robust satellite and rocket production capability and a high launch cadence, we're positioned to rapidly recover and continue our pace as the world's most active launch service provider. The next scheduled flight before the July 11 incident was the Starlink 10-4 mission from Cape Canaveral. However, time will tell when SpaceX's first return-to-flight mission in nearly 8 years will actually take place.
The main, I think, takeaway is it reminds us why we shouldn't be comfortable with a total monopoly of Falcon 9 in the launch vehicle industry, right? It's good that we have multiple launch vehicles, because even the mighty Falcon 9 can falter down again.
Reporting for Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith.